Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this lunchtime webinar. Today we have a topic that I think is really current, um, and it's something obviously that is very close to the heart of a partner as well. This Connected CMO series, as you know, is brought with the support of Microsoft, and clearly they also have a view on the choices that marketers have when they put their systems and processes together. But what we're going to talk about today is really the world has shifted to bring your own technology, and what are the choices that the marketer have. Now, I know that BYOT is typically used in a B2C context, but increasingly we are finding that even in the B2B world, most marketers are looking around for products and services that are suitable for their requirements and not necessarily having it built from scratch, but often just looking at what's available in the world and just downloading it and using it in a SaaS model, or going to their CIOs and saying that, hey, this is the kind of solution that we need, and I have shortlisted these awesome products or services, and could you look into it from a security perspective and make it happen for me? So I know that there was this Gartner prediction that the CMO will soon outstrip the CIO in spends. I'm not so sure that's happening, but what I do see is that the CMO has a far larger technology budget than they used to, and also that the technology has become very integral to the success of a marketing campaign, and therefore it's really important that the marketer looks at this. But today's session, we're also not so much going to teach you, or tell you that you got to have these products, but to break down marketing into its constituent processes and look at ways in which you could map your processes and then prioritize which are the processes that you need to immediately look at from an automation or a digitization perspective. So first, let's just go through some of the tech trends or the business trends that I think marketers should be aware of. So one is that today, whatever you sell is nice, products are profitable, but the person who owns a customer, that's the guy with the priceless stuff, right? So we are seeing that the customer journey is controlled by an aggregator, and that person gets a disproportionate value from the customer, right? So he brings together a range of products and solutions, but whoever is crafting the solution, that person takes a lion's share. So the trend is really that it doesn't matter whether you make it in-house or out. So outsourced manufacturing is important. Marketplaces are certainly the way forward. Many marketplaces have shown that. Buyer aggregators, that also works really well. And of course, capacity maximization. So if you are able to maximize capacity, then you can take over other people's capacity as well. And if you can find a way to use underutilized capacity, whether it is like dry cleaners or blood testing labs or cars or extra rooms in your house, that's also a very big trend. And you need to look at these and see, is there a play for you in these? And I bring this up in a technology presentation because all of these are possible only with really sophisticated tech in place. Second is personal versus personalized. So here again, the trend is that it's all about the big data, and you really do need to wrap your head around this big data. And again, you need tools for that. Then you have social CRM, which again has changed the way we sell today. Almost every brand has some social outreach, and increasingly, the distinction between B2C and B2B is fading. Almost everybody has to maintain a social outreach program because you get a call and you really do want to know what the customer has said or done on social media right before he called you or he or she called you, because you want to know what's the context of the call even before you take it. And that's a kind of thing that we can do with big data and social CRM. Predictive analytics, again, hugely growing space, and again helps to build the customer experience. and also, of course, to align our supply chain and delivery around our own predictions of what the customer is going to buy tomorrow. There's a huge trend towards frictionless consumption. So to minimize the effort the customer has to make to get his service or product, everything that you can make to automate or to predict it, make it happen faster is clearly a step in the right direction. So we have IoT where perhaps a sensor will tell you that, we need to send him more ice cream, or, you really need to put in more power over there. So that's one big trend, and it's a real game changer for marketers to have to think about that kind of technology in the hands of consumers and what it does to the customer's expectations of how they are going to be served. So in the past, you've seen, I'm sure you've all seen sitcoms like Are You Being Served, where it's just a joke about how nobody knows what the customer really wants. But today with IoT, you would know exactly what they want, right? And that's a new kind of a trend as well. So supply chain integration, obviously, you bought a packet of this month, you're going to buy more next month. And this works again at the industrial level where I can start predicting that if your ship is running late, then you're going to need more of this or less of that. So I can actually put in pallet level sensors, which will tell me where your object is in real time. And then we can predict your supply chain integration around that. And then, of course, there's omni-channel. Everything has to be sold simultaneously, or the same experience has to be delivered simultaneously. And payments, which is a big space in India, it really does help if you can have a seamless payment, not just in the sense of, do I have to swipe a card, but if I can do an auto pay, if I can make it easy for you to pay me every month, then that really does help remove the friction, and the customer also sees value in that experience. So as marketers, we also need to see what is the technology that is required to provide the customer with a frictionless consumption experience, but with the security of his personal data, usage data, and of course his financial data. So tech is ubiquitous. I mean, there's no arguing it. We are everywhere. And I like this little framework because we talk often about tech as a part of the offering. So you have tech inside the offering. Most of our products, probably use tech in some fashion. But the other part is, what is the internal tech that we're using? So often it happens that, the organization is really sophisticated in terms of the product or service that it sells. But if you look at its internal tech, it's in complete shambles. And that makes the whole go-to-market process inefficient, and usually also has a bad trickle-down effect on the after-sales service, because people are like, oh, I have no idea where that stuff came from, or I sent you that report yesterday, did you not read it, or could you resend it, oh, the data's changed. This keeps happening when you don't have good internal processes to manage your data or the information flow. The other part is, of course, external tech. Again, some guys come and say, oh, I've got this really cool offering, but when you go to their digital assets, it's really hard for you to see how they could be cool because it's outdated or badly designed, and you just have no idea how to consume this product or service, and you're pretty much scared to even enter into a transaction on this site. So we have to look at tech both, not just both, three places. One is, how can we use tech to innovate in our service offering or product? How can we use tech to make our internal processes better? And third is, how do we use tech to make our external journey or the customer journey better and project ourselves and our sales experience far better as well? So I would suggest that we look at this and you actually make a chart and see where all we can use tech in a meaningful way. So the marketer circa 2017 is very clever. So we did talk about it when what happens to the new marketer, but so I'm just going to recap it, but he or she is very much like a scientist. They really have to know how to use data, and the data cannot be used without the right technology, and therefore they do have to start looking at things like, how much of data can it crunch, can it answer natural language questions, what about security, am I prone to ransomware. So the whole bunch of things. But on the plus side, I can track consumers at the individual level. I can customize my offerings as per these. I mean, you look at a paint company, and whether it's B2B or B2C sale, you can pretty much mix your own colors. But I can also say that, hey, this season, this is the color, and I'm just going to launch it that way. And said, oh, last year people loved that, shiny pink. This year I'm going to have shiny orange and see if it does as well. So you have that ability with tech, not just from the analytics perspective, but even at the manufacturing level. And we can predict purchases. We talked a little bit about that. The pricing is, the flow is enormous, because we can tweak it based on the situation the customer is in, which we again can gain an insight from a lot of data. For example, locational, movement, heat, any of those data could be available to us, and we could change our pricing accordingly, right? So if we can get from a sensors that, or the weather report, that heat is on its way, then hey, ice creams, air conditioners, a lot of stuff starts to move. And even from a prediction perspective, from B2B, I could start saying that, hey, next year the demand for these cooling products is really going to rise, and therefore come and sell you something. So at a higher price, right? So from a communication perspective, of course, there is a wide variety of communication options, and the marketer has to be aware of all of them. And some of them are really context sensitive and have the ability to be used in real time to communicate some of the real time offers that we have. Last but not the least, it's really important that we listen to our customers. And again, we have a ton of tools for that if only we opened our ears. So I actually see that in the market, there is a lot of interest in how do we talk to customers? What are the new channels? How do we digitize? All of that. But the true success comes when we use the same tools and the same enthusiasm to actually listen to the customer and feed that into our data as well. So the marketer circa 2017 is looking really far away from the madman of the 60s. He is not really, cigar smoking and creative fellow. It's not really that. It's an analytical, process-oriented person who says, I can slice and dice customer preferences and then apply creativity and come up with a great solution that is applicable to this particular customer. So it's part technologist, part Picasso, part Einstein. So let's look at tech. How much can we do? Often when you're a marketer, you don't really look at the marketing landscape, the tech landscape, but you do get lots of calls. But it's amazing. Last year there were around 3,500 products just created for marketers. And of course, most of us haven't dealt with all of them, but it's an interesting landscape. But obviously you're looking for something that is robust. And the very fact that there are 3,500 products out there, but you can't probably name more than 10 on your hand, means that we are in for consolidation. So it's really important to make sure that whatever you're picking is stable and has, a good roadmap, and the guys are going to be around to support you when you need it. You could enlarge this. This is from the Chief Martech site, but you should enlarge it. And it's not about, reviewing each of these products, but I like the structure that's being used to categorize them. And you can also look at this for mapping it to your organization and like a checklist and say that, hey, do I need this particular type of thing? Do I need CRM? Do I need lead management? Do I need, so it really helps to structure your thoughts around your requirements, not so much from this is my pain point to having a long list and then working backwards and saying, I don't actually need all of these things. So let's take a look at the process that marketing follows. And then, because I think that we first should map our processes, determine what's important, and then you can decide which are the areas where technology would be most important for you. So one clearly is, the customer awareness and acquisition. So we get a lot of discussion around that, and I put down the processes around that. Um, the second is channel management, so lead allocation, trade marketing. Then we have customer advocacy. How do we incentivize them? How do you facilitate their advocacy? The CRM piece, and then the market sensing piece that we briefly touched upon. Now, I've just listed out the processes, but it's really good for you to write down a process map of the ideal process that should be followed for each of these and what are the data sources. And this is important because otherwise what happens is that you're just automating the inefficiencies. And, so the tool is there, but it's just doing the same stuff that you used to do and with the same mistakes or, so it's very important to have what I would call a gold class process in place for each of these, and then we go into the automation. So for example, you want to do dynamic lead allocation to your trade partners. It's very important to get them on board because otherwise you're going to have to do manual allocation. It'll come through a system automated, but if they don't have the capacity to read it, then you're going to have to patch that gap. So everywhere you have to look at how many people are being touched by this process, and we have to do it like a change management program. And some of this may seem really simplistic, but the fact is that marketing traditionally has not undertaken really large IT projects, which we now have to do. So, some ways it's good to take a little crash course on how to run an IT project, because again, even as we are rising in size and importance of tech, marketing technology is still probably not a huge part of your organizational focus or budget. And so you may not get the kind of bandwidth that you're hoping for from your internal organization. And so you may actually end up having to do a lot of this yourself. So I have this little marketing architecture slide, and I just found it useful to break up the areas. So for example, across, which bits do we need for efficiency? Which bits do we need for the narrative? Which bits do we need from a pure tech middleware piece? What are the tech backbone? Which are my data repositories? And then again, a separate section for ad tech platforms. It's not very complicated, and it gives you a good structure to break up your needs in terms of both processes as well as the tools you need, right? So I would suggest that you use this. This is proprietary to Paul Ryder. Use this, map it, see what you need today, what you need tomorrow, and then put together the processes that would feed into this marketing architecture, and then map it across to the products and services that you think would best meet these particular requirements. So what I had shown you earlier was last year's slide. So now I've got this year's slide, and it's huge. So the market's really blown up, and now we have, 5,000 companies clearly about to go in for consolidation. But I like the heads, so it is worth looking at them, and then of course picking out the person or the service that's best fit for you. But this slide is just there to show you how big things are. To make things a little simpler, again, I have a slide. One is that I've broken up tech into internal and external, if you remember the little pyramid that we had. So this is just based on that. And what I've done is try to break up the common areas that are there in each of these segments, like data ops or campaign automation, measurement, lead management, and then put down the elements or the processes for each of those. And then you would probably need another table which maps each of these to your short list of potential solutions. And then you can, of course, choose which one you would like to be. And, obviously Microsoft has some really good options here. I think if you're on Office 365, you should consider talking to them and seeing if you could use that itself for all your marketing needs at the moment. But, it may be worthwhile to do the process mapping first and then decide which are the areas that you want to apply to. So this slide is about internal tech, and the next one is on external tech, where again, I've broken it up into 4 areas and the elements in each of those that you could consider. I'm not saying this is entirely comprehensive, so feel free to add. And if you find a missing element, then feel free to mail me and tell me so that I can help a fellow marketer by adding it in. So these are the ideas that came to me top of mind. So like I said, it's a lot, but there could be a lot more. I mean, clearly 5,000 products is a lot happening out there. So with that, I come to the end of today's session on the Bring Your Own Technology. And I hope it's been useful for you. And if you have questions, you can always mail me, call me, or just put it in the chat window and I will respond to you. And of course, the recordings will be available on our website on the Connected CMO page. So thanks to everyone for joining us. And we do hope you will come back for the next webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.